It's an honor to be able to once again appear before you representing New York's court officers. In doing so, I seek to present some crucial information about our service to the state and how this budget will affect our duty to provide that service to our fellow citizens. For the first time in my 5 years of addressing this committee, New York's court officers are working under a new collective bargaining agreement. In reaching this agreement, we incur real increases in compensation, equitable with other state agencies. We will also see increases to our welfare fund, allowing us to continue to provide our members with a generous benefit package. It was a difficult process, but after working under an expired contract for 7 years, we're finally moving forward. Additionally, we were able to create a new financial benefit for uniformed law enforcement personnel, which recognizes the hazards of our employment and aids in supplementing the zero growth years that all state employees sustained. I thank the members of the legislature for their support throughout the many years we fought to reach this agreement. The critical work of collective bargaining is behind us. However, we face many challenges as we proceed forward. We are still short approximately 250 officers in New York City and the 9th Judicial District. The problem exists not in the amount of people who want to accept employment as court officers, but in the Office of Court Administration's absence of a policy to steadily recoup our losses to retirement, promotions, and attrition outside the system. We lose more people per year than we gain. We're operating at a net loss while non-uniform personnel is not. For example, Supreme Court justices formerly entitled to a court attorney and a secretary are now employing an extra court attorney instead of the secretary, who's paid at a much higher salary than a secretary. This drives budget costs up dramatically and results in a clear inability to hire new court officers. While I understand the importance a court attorney provides in the assistance of clearing backlogs, not every justice requires the addition of one, and certainly not on the backs of security personnel who continue to do more work with less resources. Plainly stated, over the course of the last number of years, the court system has hired twice as many attorneys as it once employed, while allowing the levels of security staff to dwindle some 20%. Similarly, administration has determined that due to budgetary constraints, it is unable to properly promote our members above the rank of officer. We have dozens of sergeant and lieutenant positions that remain vacant for exceedingly long periods of time. I have been told that these positions cannot be filled until the budget clears them, when people distinctly held these positions in the recent past. In turn, we have people working out of title and perhaps not trained or qualified for the standards required of the job which they are performing. This is backwards and a perilous manner with which to operate the safety of a branch of our state government. If a position is vacated for whatever reason, it should be filled within a reasonable amount of time and not unnecessarily withheld to play games with the budget. Furthermore, the Office of Court Administration allowed its main training facility to lose its lease without a contingency plan. The New York City-based training facility was vital in accepting large groups of recruits and helping recover staffing losses. Now, the primary training facility for new recruits is located 150 miles north of the city in Castleton, New York. A large majority of eligible recruits hail from New York City and Long Island. These folks are now asked to relocate for 14 weeks of training, and it is my firm belief that we are losing interested, bright, and very qualified individuals based on the inconvenience this presents. What is even more baffling is that the completion of a standalone academy on Classen Avenue in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, was slated to be operational in 2012, with approval in 2006 by Governor Pataki and $30 million earmarked by Governor Spitzer for finalization, yet it is yet to open its doors. Why then, in 2018, is the Office of Court Administration losing a lease and unable to open this new academy, which will easily provide a local, modern, and accessible, consistent location to address security shortfalls? Irresponsible hiring practices and out-of-control spending on items that do not have a bearing on the day-to-day safety of court users. Governor Cuomo's paid family leave plan is the initiative that hardworking New Yorkers need. In fact, it is something organized labor has been clamoring for a long period of time. While well within its rights, the unified court system has opted not to participate, virtually conveying to its employees that caring for a newborn or a sick family member is less important than your presence at work. These are critical times in one's life, and the message being sent here is misguided. As many other state employees will deal with these major mileposts in their lives, my members will continue to deal with the stresses of finance, job security, and health care, as their employer forces them to use their accrued time with such a lack of compassion and understanding of the depths of human experience these instances carry with them. The governor's mandate that state employees under executive control are actively negotiating the provisions of this new important Family Leave Act, and the Office of Court Administration's abject failure to recognize its responsibility to offer its employees the same benefit is insulting and devastating. Over 90% of the judiciary budget is designated to the very engine that runs the system, people, the citizens that you represent. For the court system to deny the system to those people is reprehensible, and they should be held to task, at the very least negotiate this with its employees, as has its co-equal partners in government. The Office of Court Administration has requested a 2.5% increase, which was more than other state agencies. And of course, we fully support the added funding so it may be applied to staffing. Governor Cuomo's remarks of support for that increase were based on the judges working from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. My members do work from 9 to 5 and many times longer, whether a judge is in the courtroom or not. We are approaching a decade with a serious lack of manpower in the Supreme Courts, and many of the shortcuts implemented have resulted in shorter days and major backlogs. We independently endorse the judicial system opening to the public for a full 8 hours every day and beyond when necessary. We already work full days and don't get to leave on the schedule of the judiciary. If there is a more accessible system, it requires funds to staff the full days the public deserves. As I visit the court facilities that I have the privilege to represent, it is an ever-present occurrence that the security infrastructure is below standard. In almost every court, there are surveillance camera systems that do not work. In this workplace environment, where we were short-staffed by 20%, these cameras aid in the secure operations of our courts. Every day there are incidents which require official law enforcement action be taken, and to ensure that action is proper and lawful, we rely on this equipment to aid in the performance of our duties. These systems must be brought up to date to help provide a safe, orderly function of the administration of justice. Similarly, our radios, magnetometers, and x-ray machines must be up to the standards of those used in federal courts. I call on you to help guide the Office of Court Administration to collaborate with federal authorities to update all systems and policies which continue to remain archaic and substandard. In many of these court facilities, there are hundreds of boxes of computers and other goods lying idle and never used. They are representative of the waste the court system finds acceptable and their reckless and imprudent spending habits. There are more pressing needs than more computers every single year. In order to claim the safest and most efficient judicial system in the country, we must be open to new and innovative procedures. The creation of a specialized K-9 unit to identify explosives in and around all state courts is becoming a necessity. Based on recent terror incidents in New York City, it is only a matter of time before a strike is made at the heart of American justice and the hallmark of righteousness, a courthouse. These highly effective units have proven to detect as well as deter explosives incidents in public places around the world. Many other agencies' units are willing to assist in making this program financially less burdensome, but the time has come to introduce a program like this as proactive before it is introduced as a reaction to a deadly incident. In closing, for 5 years I have come here to Albany and been privileged to make a presentation to this committee. The budget process is enlightening and fascinating, and it makes so much of a difference to the men and women who serve New York State. And I ask you on this visit to keep in mind the positive attributes as well as the negative elements of waste that these agencies incur. I ask you to take into account that all of these decisions are not just numbers in a line item, but real issues that impact the quality of life of so many citizens. They are your parents, your children, your coworkers, your constituents, and so many of the decisions made during this process determine the type of year they will enjoy or have to endure. I thank you for your time and consideration today.
Thank you. I think I may have just have one question from the Senate. So explain to me how your workers aren't eligible for the state's paid family leave law.
Right. The Unified Court System recently issued a memo that they were not going to opt into the paid family leave mandate of the governor, who set, I believe, the mandate for members under executive control to negotiate with their collective bargaining units.
But it's also state law for the private sector. So are you the only ones out there left in New York who aren't under?
That I don't have the answer to, Senator Kruger, but
She knows the answer.
I'm sure.
Sorry.
The paid family leave bill that we passed and the governor signed into law allows an opt-in for public employers because the vast majority of public employers have collective bargaining agreements with bargaining units that the issue of paid family leave has to be negotiated. Right now, the city is in negotiations with the teachers union over it. They want a better benefit than the state program requires, and therefore there's a statutory contribution from the employee.
Right.
In order to get a better benefit, it requires a larger increase, so that would require negotiation. That's the long answer to that question.
Thank you, as always, for the clarification, Senator Savino. And we stand ready to negotiate with the court system paid family leave act.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the services of your members.
Thank you.
Throughout the state. I've certainly over the years observed them in performing their duty and helping to keep our courtrooms safe. You know, just as you were talking about the training upstate, I turned to my counsel. I said, I remember a few years ago we put in there was a capital appropriation for a training site in Brooklyn. And I see that you mentioned it. Do you have any more detail of why that site isn't open? And
No, the court officers were trained in a private building on William Street in Lower Manhattan for many years, and as of the end of 2016, we were informed in short order that they had basically lost their lease. There was no contingency plan. As I mentioned, the standalone academy in Crown Heights was scheduled to open in 2012. We sit here 6 years later and it's still not open. The details of which I don't have. Would have liked to have asked Judge Marks that question, but
well, we'll get the answers to the question. Be happy to share with you. But as far as you know, the plan is still to open up that facility in Crown Heights?
yes, I believe that they actually have expedited some of the work, but again, we believe this should have been completed, over half a decade ago. So I believe that due to the issues and moving upstate, they did expedite. I don't have the reason why it took so long.
Well, we'll certainly find out that information. Thank you.
Thank you.
All set. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time.
Thank